Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with a love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? 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 We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. So y'all, last week I started off by telling you how I had spent the week celebrating Thanksgiving and how it's my favorite holiday. Well, this week I spent the week celebrating Thanksgiving, and it turns out it's still my favorite holiday. This week, Zoe and I traveled to her parents' home in New Hampshire to spend some time up here, and I've talked about staying up here before on Zoo News. As a matter of fact, if you were listening back earlier this year when I was playing waitress at Northern Stage, I lived here for something like 6 weeks, and I really love it up here. It's snowy, the house is in the woods, it's very peaceful, and the areas around here, like so Hanover, New Hampshire, and West Lebanon, New Hampshire, and White River Junction, Vermont, are all these just beautiful, cool towns, and I love it so much. I have my favorite restaurants, my favorite shops. There's so much. I just love it up here. And so it has been such a nice, relaxing time. And of course, because it is New Hampshire and it is December, there was snow. There was probably, 8 or 9 inches of snow. But as is the case in Buffalo, where I live, it's one of those things where, honestly, it's just never a big deal because they know how to handle it up here. Like, you get a ton of snow that back when I lived in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, would have just stopped everything. And a couple hours later, the roads are clear, the sidewalks are clear. You can live your life. You got to be a little careful, got to watch out for that ice. But it's very different, and so it just makes the rest of the snow that's still there on the grass and everything is just beautiful and adds an incredible backdrop, foredrop, all the drops really, to life in this place. So yeah, it has been a really nice, relaxing week. And of course, it's also been a week that has some really cool news for Rossifari. I'm sure you've seen this on the socials, but in case you haven't, there are 2 things that I want to tell you about. First of all is that we have some merch now, and there are 2 things. First of all, I haven't really promoted this as much, but there is an ornament, a tree ornament that is just kind of the Rossifari logo that you can go and get. And then also we have our Kangaroos in Trees. Why are they in trees? Rossifari shirts and hoodies and all of that stuff. It features art by Zoe, and it's obviously, in case you're newer here, you've heard me talk about the holiday special that will be coming up, and every year I do one of these, and there is music, and there are parody songs, and there are skits, and there are jokes, and all kinds of stuff. And in the very first one, my buddy Taylor Gray did a parody of Christmas Time Is Here, the Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Peanuts gang song from the Christmas special. And it was so beloved that we did another version of it last year. And as a matter of fact, it will be the only recurring thing in the episode this year from those previous years, because people just loved it. And the lyric of Kangaroos in Trees, why are they in trees, has been so celebrated by so many of my fans that we decided to throw it on a shirt with some cool tree kangaroo art and the Rossifari logo and put it out there for y'all. So check my stories, check the links on my page, and you can go and buy yourself some of those. And I will be donating 10% of any profits that I make from this to tree kangaroo conservation. So yay that. And then the other big topic that I'm really proud of, and I need to take a moment to share. And again, this was my post yesterday, so apologies if this is old news to you. But Spotify Wrapped came out, and for a lot of you, that's about what you listen to, and that's very cool. But they also do something called Spotify Wrapped for creators, which shows you your statistics and your growth as a podcaster. And I was blown away by my numbers this year, like truly blown away. So first of all, these are just the Spotify numbers. And I have to say that Spotify isn't even where I have my most listeners. That's actually on Apple Podcasts. And so with that said, this year, Rossifari received a 716% increase in new listeners. People listened for longer than 95% of all other podcasts. People commented on episodes more than 89% of all other podcasts. And Rossifari received more shares than 94% of all podcasts on Spotify, while being heard in 43 countries around the world. That's absolutely mind-boggling to me. I am so grateful that so many of you are here, are part of this community, and that this little podcast of mine just keeps growing. It really means a lot to me. So thank you all for being here. And if you are able to support by buying a shirt or an ornament, and don't worry, there will be some other more basic logo-y merch coming out next year at some point. Or if you're able to sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/Rossifari to support. It all helps. And honestly, it all goes back into the podcast. So I appreciate y'all so very much. And it's so great to have a community that I feel so confident that you're invested enough to care about my wins. So thank you for being here. And with all of that said, let's get to it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Ow, that's a funky monkey, tree kangaroo, or a binturong.
It's Zoo News.
Yeah. All right, so we don't actually have a headline story this week, so we're going to start right off with births, and we only have a few to talk about this week. The Detroit Zoo has welcomed 3 lion cubs to the pride. Born to Mom Amira and Dad Kalu, the 3 are doing well and bonding with Mom in their den. A 4th cub was born after the first 3, much later after the first 3, but it did not survive. And it's so awesome that the 3 other lions are doing well. And I applaud the Detroit Zoo for their transparency about the lost cub as well. It's a part of nature, a natural part of life, but, something that would be tempting to hide while celebrating the births of the other 3. But instead, I get to celebrate those 3 births and the honesty of the zoo. Love it. The Los Angeles Zoo has welcomed a new gorilla to the troupe, the first one born at the zoo since 2020. Ndigia and Silverback Kelly welcomed the little one, their second baby together. So far, the little one is doing well, and the staff haven't been hands-on because Mom is doing such a great job. So you can already see Mom with little one nursing or on her back, at the zoo. And then last but not least, in births this week, the 7th critically endangered African penguin chick has been born at the Maryland Zoo this year. The baby is doing well, parents are doing well, staff is doing well, all is well. The truth is, the Maryland Zoo is so good at the hatching and rearing of these chicks, it would honestly be shocking if that wasn't the case. So yeah, it's always so awesome to me how this incredible facility is so good at penguins, and especially breeding the species that, needs a lot of help. They are critically endangered. But man, the Maryland Zoo just knocks penguins out of the park. And of course, that leads us to our deaths for this week. And we start with a really painful loss. The Trevor Lovejoy Zoo has said goodbye to Vivi, one of the 2 binturongs that recently moved to the zoo from Seneca Park Zoo. She was known for her incredibly sweet disposition. And recently, she started having mobility issues with her left rear leg. Diagnostics showed that she was suffering from osteosarcoma, or bone cancer. The cancer had actually eaten away some of her leg bone, so the decision was made to euthanize her. Vivi was an awesome binturong that I had the opportunity to meet the last time I visited the Trevor Lovejoy Zoo, and I even visited her at Seneca Park Zoo back when her and her partner Anton, who moved to Trevor Lovejoy Zoo with her, had their last bintlets. Just an awesome girl. And, when I was at the Trevor Lovejoy Zoo, they did tell me that Vivi was having leg issues. And at the time, they were hopeful it was just a strain or something. But, unfortunately, it wasn't. I will say that everyone I talked to about Vivi and Anton told me how much they had stolen the hearts of all of the staff and students at the zoo. Just some really incredible, cool animals. And yeah, this is a huge loss for the zoo. So I am sending all of my love to the team there, and I am going to miss seeing that beautiful girl when I next visit. Seneca Park Zoo has said goodbye to Katya, the 20-year-old Amur tiger, who was the oldest Amur tiger in any AZA-accredited zoo. Treatment for chronic kidney disease and severe arthritis had been working quite well until recently, and her health started to decline rapidly, so the correct and humane decision was made to euthanize her. And while it's always sorry to see an animal pass, she was very, very old, which is an incredible testament to the care that she received at the zoo. Our friends at Roger Williams Park Zoo have said goodbye to Fernando, the giant otter. He was 11 years old, a geriatric age for giant otters. When Fernando was younger and lived elsewhere, he suffered from an orthopedic injury that healed abnormally in one of his hind legs. Over time, the injury led to arthritis and an altered gait, which placed undue stress on his feet, leading to pododermatitis, a painful inflammation of the skin and tissues of the foot. The issues were medically managed well until about a year ago, when traditional treatments seemed to be less effective. At that point, the veterinary team at Roger Williams Park Zoo employed a groundbreaking stem cell therapy, which added another 11 months of comfort and mobility to his life. Sadly, this also stopped working as well after those 11 months, and the decision was made to say goodbye. Fernando lived with his older brother Romo, whose staff is monitoring carefully to see how he adjusts to the absence. Staff and Romo and everyone there is definitely going to miss Fernando. Hugh, one of the Gen 2 penguins at Dingle Aquarium, has passed away. He was the oldest penguin in Ireland at 36 years old at the time of his passing. He was known for being a gentleman and loved ribbons, bubbles, and of course, all the fun, flirtatious games that penguins play. He was really good at building nests to flirt with the ladies, often sneaking into other nests that other male penguins were building and stealing their best bits for his own. A sassy penguin like that is always going to be missed. Athena, a southern two-toed sloth known for her curious and sassy personality, has passed away at the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute. She was 7 years old, around half the life expectancy of a female two-toed sloth. Unfortunately, Athena had early-onset chronic kidney disease, which made it challenging for her to keep weight on. As she ate less and lost more weight, she slept more and exhibited even less interest in eating, which became a vicious cycle. The veterinary team tried to intervene, but they were unable to figure out exactly what was wrong and how they could help before Athena passed away. Athena was a very special sloth, in part because she had some behaviors that aren't what people typically think of when it comes to sloths. She would try to sneak up on her keepers, to steal hoses or feed cups out of their hands. She would also get the zoomies. Yes, she was a sloth, but she still got zoomies. So she served as a great reminder that sloths are more than just slow animals, and also that individual animals have their own unique personalities. Hers is greatly missed. And that's not the only loss at the National Zoo, as Truffle, a geriatric brush-tailed betong, recently passed away at the age of 15. She lived nearly twice as long as the median life expectancy for the species, which is 8 years. Truffle recently stopped eating her normal amount of food and also started exhibiting possible neurological problems. Given her advanced age, the decision was made to humanely euthanize her because of these issues. So, sending lots of love to the team at the National Zoo who's lost a couple of really incredible animals. And then moving on from births and deaths, we get to our normal zoo news section. And honestly, it's not that normal this week. There are a couple of really interesting and controversial stories at the start of this section. And honestly, a lot of times when I get stories sent to me, a lot of y'all send me, the same stories, which this is not a complaint. Please keep sending me all the things, but I will get the same story 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 times because, we're all looking at the same social media and seeing the same things. But these first two are actually things. Well, okay, the first one, a bunch of you sent me, and I'll talk about why that's it's interesting. There were very different takes on it. And then the second one is one that I actually found on my own that nobody sent me. So yeah, I still occasionally do work for this podcast. Who knew? So the first one of those stories is, and I'm sure a lot of you saw this, a 19-year-old man climbed into a lion enclosure in a zoo in Brazil. And unsurprisingly, this did not go well, as a lioness dragged him to the ground as he was climbing in and mauled him to death. Because, of course she did, because she's a lion and he crawled into her habitat. The zoo, known as the Parque Zoo Botanico Arruda Camara, is, from everything I could see, considered a good facility with a strong record, although I could not find any details on any accreditation status. I was using a whole lot of Google Translate, so, if I missed something, I apologize. But I didn't see anything AZA or WAZA or anything like that. All right, we'll be back after this quick break.
Please join me for the Nature Disturbed podcast, a podcast about the good, the offensive, and the confusing parts of the animal kingdom, from the sewers of Florida searching for alligators. Oh no, did I forget to put the bins out? To the surface of Mars, investigating the possibility of life beyond Earth. Sorry, I had some bubbles lodged in my throat. I said, to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, all while interviewing scientists about their research along the way. Do you like comedy, whimsical storytelling, and learning about the natural world? If not, then you'll hate the Nature Disturbed podcast.
Still, to get into the habitat, which there are pictures and videos of, the man had to climb up a huge wall, then over a fence that had an inward angle to the top of it, then slide down a tree into the habitat. So this was not something that an average person could do. I still don't understand how he climbed that wall. And it turns out the man in question was a known entity to the local police because he suffered from schizophrenia and had been hospitalized for it, institutionalized, I guess would be the word, numerous times. Now, this is where it gets weird. So depending on who you ask / what stories you read / what Translate was telling me at the moment, the man either believed he was a lion, believed that he was meant to live with lions, as a human, kind of like Mogwai in the Jungle Book, but with lions, I guess, or believed that he was meant to be a lion tamer. And yeah, not great, any of those things. He actually once was caught trying to sneak into the landing gear of an airplane heading to Africa, hoping to get there on the plane for free so he could live out whichever of those lion dreams he thought he would live out. And it's interesting because so many of the stories that I saw missed that part or seem to argue about which of the particular, unfortunate and weird thoughts it was that he had that led him to do this thing. And I guess in the end, it maybe doesn't matter, but I kind of think it does. I don't know. It's fascinating. But the good news is that the zoo has announced that the lion will not be euthanized, will not be punished. There was an intruder in her house and she did the thing she needed to do. And I'm pretty glad that is the decision that was made, because while I feel for the dude and his mental illness, you can't climb into a lion habitat. And this dude did. And yeah, it turned out like it did, and that's unfortunate. But I'm glad that they're not also going to lose a lion's life because of it. Then in the other controversial story, the one that I found, former Edinburgh zookeeper Lisa O'Hara is suing the zoo for discrimination because of her ADHD. She claims she was subjected to degrading treatment and excessive scrutiny at the zoo, leading her to resign from her post in February of this year, less than a year after taking the job. She claims she was denied reasonable adjustments because of her ADHD. She claimed the disease made her unable to identify individual animals, which is considered a basic and vital part of a keeper's job, but that she was mocked for her inability to do so. She would also show up to meetings late or miss them entirely, as well as perform tasks on her own schedule rather than the one assigned to her because she has timekeeping issues because of her advanced ADHD. She said that she was not only not given reasonable accommodations to help her with these issues, but that her teammates ostracized her because of their frustrations with said issues, often leaving her to eat alone or even telling her that she needed to find a way to hide her ADHD. And look, I feel for her. I truly do. But even as a volunteer, I'm not allowed to do a lot of things with animals until I can pass an animal ID quiz and truly know what individual I'm working with. I'm currently working my butt off to remember the differences between 6 yellow stingrays at Aquarium of Niagara, and I only see them once a week right now. All of the things Miss O'Hara is claiming she was unable to do because of her disease are things that are basic zookeeping skills and are essential not just for the career, but for the well-being of the animals in question. So I will be super interested to see how this plays out. Now, my knowledge of labor law is a bit out of date and is also based mostly on United States labor law. But if you don't know this, that is a big part of what I studied in college. And because of that, my understanding, again, USA, a little while ago. But the reasonable accommodations that need to be made in those situations are just that. They're reasonable. If a person is unable to do a job at the most basic level because of an issue, even a health issue, even one that is a disability, then that's game over for them. So yeah, I'll be curious to see how this develops. And if you're wondering, if you're not in the field and you wonder why identifying an individual animal matters so much, it really does. It's how you track behaviors and diets. And it's how you make sure they get their necessary meds and vitamins. And it's how you do training. It's all of it. Honestly, there are so many stories on this podcast that I share. And, whether I say this part or not, the story starts with a keeper noticed that an animal was acting strangely, wasn't eating enough, wasn't taking their meds, wasn't interacting with their normal best friend, wasn't showing happy behaviors, whatever it was. They know the individuals so well that they are able to catch issues early. This happens all the time, and it leads to them saving the animal from a disease or finding out that there's a social issue and stopping it before anything violent happens or whatever. All the different things that we talk about all the time stem from keepers identifying their individual animals all the time. So yeah, this is one of those stories that I am very curious to hear my audience's take on, to be honest. I think you can kind of tell where I'm laying with it, but I'm curious to hear what y'all think, so let me know. 2 other stories in zoo news before we move on. Lion Country Safari, located in Loxahatchee, Florida, has been sold to billionaire Larry Ellison and his family. This is a drive-through safari as well as a walk-through water park with amusement rides. The previous family that owned the park ran it for 58 years before selling it to Ellison, the 3rd richest man in the world and the founder and biggest stockholder in Oracle. Ellison is an interesting figure to have in the zoological world. He has a noted history of giving to conservation organizations, and he seems to have a really big heart for animal conservation in particular. He actually owns a breeding and rescue center in California with a focus on native wildlife. Lion Country Safari is accredited by the AZA, so this brings an incredibly rich and influential person into the world of the AZA. With all of that said, Ellison is also a big-time vocal Trump supporter who also donates a lot to the president, despite the damage the administration's policies are having on conservation policies at the federal level. So I don't fully know where he stands with everything, and I think this is going to make for a really interesting story to keep our eyes on. And then last but not least in zoo news this week, the Audubon Institute, overseers of the Audubon Zoo and Audubon Aquarium in New Orleans, recently announced huge hikes to their membership pricing, and the public was not having it. The new plan included many more perks, but raised the prices of memberships to almost double what they had been previously. The outcry on social media posts about this was fierce to a level that I found surprising. And again, I'm a person who regularly sees crappy stuff online and comments on it. And it seems like the Institute has heard the people and has walked back its proposed increases, kind of. They claim that they are planning on keeping the all-access membership at the new high rate, but are looking into developing more cost-effective alternative membership options. All membership sales are temporarily suspended while they try to solve this problem. So I think it's cool that they are looking into this and trying to figure out how to be good stewards of, what the public needs and all of that, while also fully accepting that prices on everything, including stuff animals need, are rising significantly. So yet again, I've been saying this a lot today, but this will be another interesting one to keep my eyes on. And I'll be curious to see how much of the damage is irreversible and how much people are like, oh, hey, cool. They listened. They're going to do something as long as it's, a good something, and it will work out for everyone. So yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on it. And that brings us to Stereotypical Animal Podcast Theme Song. Here to bring you to conservation news. All right, so the CITES Conference of the Parties happened this past week in Uzbekistan, which at least a few of you just learned as a country, but that's okay. This is a conference that is held every 3 years, and CITES, which is spelled like the word the cities, but without one of the I's, kind of like, it's the word sites. What am I doing? Like CITES, like in a paper. But anyway, it's not pronounced that way. It's CITES. Stands for the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Flora and Fauna. But I guess they decided that CITES didn't read as clearly. But they do also turn Conference of the Parties into the acronym COP or COP, so it's CITES COP. Anyway, this week we will look at a few of the conservation news stories pertaining to that. Our first story from there is that the parties voted to list oceanic white-tip sharks on Appendix 1, the highest level of protection offered by CITES. This listing will end international commercial trade of these sharks, representing the first time a shark species has received full protection with a complete ban on international trade. Another absolutely incredible bit of news from CITES, all international commercial trade of manta and devil rays is now officially illegal, as they have also been added to Appendix 1. Many of the populations of these rays have declined by 80 to 99% over the last few years due to overfishing and trade, so this is a huge deal. Along with being sold for their meat, their gill plates are also used in the same types of traditional Asian medicines that have been disproven but are still used by certain people, like pangolins and also like rhino horn and stuff. I really do hope that at some point in my life, people stop assuming they will have better boners because of ingesting weird animal bits. But I digress. Impressively, the decision to list manta and devil rays on Appendix 1 was adopted by consensus, meaning basically the whole world came together to agree to this, which is just huge news for the rays. And speaking of Appendix 1 protections, the okapi has been uplisted to this level of protection as well, making all trade of any parts of the species illegal. Now, the Democratic Republic of the Congo already protects the species fully, but this extra step will help prevent anyone who does poach an okapi illegally from being able to move the parts on international markets, which is kind of cool. And the same protections have been given to Madagascar iguanas, the water iguanas that live in the water and on the land, and they're so cool and stuff. And yeah, so just very cool protections for a lot of animals. With that said, another decision made at CITES has led to some serious controversy. The nations at CITES voted to allow international commercial trade in saiga horn from Kazakhstan under new quotas limiting exports to 10,000 kilograms per year. Many conservation organizations, including the WCS, have complained about this decision because while saiga populations in Kazakhstan have rebounded to the point where this trade should not lead to the need for additional protections, there are still concerns that the increase of horns entering international markets will risk increased demand, enforcement challenges, and illegal trade to meet said increased demand. There is also a risk that it will increase the demand for other saiga horns, such as from the Saiga borealis in Mongolia, which is not at a healthy population level and is found on an isolated area that makes it extremely vulnerable to poaching and very hard to protect. So, yeah, really interesting that this passed despite the vehement opposition of the WCS and many other conservationists. Moving away from CITES, we do have some bad news about elephant seals. Drone surveys show that bird flu, avian influenza, that thing we've been talking about forever, has wiped out nearly half the females in the largest population of elephant seals in the world. This is just the latest illustration of how this disease is sweeping through pinniped populations as well as the bird populations of the world, causing havoc with no end in sight. And speaking of bird diseases, the avian influenza isn't the only one being a jerk right now. Recently, Spix macaws were reintroduced to Brazil. These beautiful birds were featured in the 2011 film Rio, and a conservation organization in Brazil has been working hard to reintroduce the birds to their native habitat there. The reintroduction has been a truly amazing effort as the species went fully extinct in the wild, but zoo-held populations had birds shipped to Brazil for breeding, with those individuals that were bred being introduced to the wild. But now, those conservationists have discovered cytosine circovirus amongst the population. Also known as the beak and feather disease virus, this incredibly infectious disease causes feather loss, beak deformities, and death in most cases. There is no cure. 11 wild birds have been found with the disease so far, and around 21 of the 90 still at the breeding facility have also tested positive. Blue Sky, the organization that manages the breeding facility, has been hit with a $340,000 fine for not properly following biosecurity protocols. The government has accused the organization of allowing the breeding facility to get disgustingly dirty, filled with poop, and also for staff not only not using stringent biosecurity measures, but often not using any at all, leading directly to the spread of this disease. The government is stepping in with an emergency plan aimed at protecting the Spix macaws as well as other local cytosine populations in the area. But for now, the dereliction of duty may lead to the re-extinction in the wild of Spix macaws. Only time will tell. And then, to not end it on such a bad note, one more story for conservation news. The critically endangered Philippine crocodile, once believed to be extinct in the wild, has slowly started seeing population recovery through conservation efforts. A partnership between conservation scientists, the indigenous Agata population, and the local government has worked to help protect the habitats of the crocs and engage in Head Start programs for juvenile crocodiles before releasing them into the wild. There are even local guardians who patrol sanctuaries and teach school children to save the crocodiles. The population is over 125 individuals so far, a huge increase from possibly zero, as it was believed to be. But the animal still has a long way to go. But yeah, this is just a really cool success story. And I love that it involves many parties, including indigenous people, as well as the government, as well as scientists. And that brings us to...
It's time for other news. It's time for other news. Hey, now, right now, it's time. It's time for other news. Hey, it's a segue to the part called other news.
So this is an interesting, almost philosophical discussion. Scientists are currently debating whether sharks play. This is after a new study came out showing sharks interacting with human toys in a way that resembles play, but the word play itself does not appear in the paper in question. So video footage shows sharks swimming through hoops, picking them up with their snouts, flicking the toys with their tails, and bumping into or even biting them in what appears to be a playful manner. So already, very cool study. But does this count as play? Well, the authors of the study say that for an interactive behavior to be called play, the behavior needs to be contrasted with normal behavior, trigger a sense of reward in the brain of the animal, and happen when the animal is in an unstressed context. Since the study didn't rigorously address those points, the authors were unable to claim the behaviors they saw as play. They actually originally did include that word to describe the behaviors, but reviewers said the behaviors weren't studied in such a way that proved whether they do or don't meet that criteria. Reviewers, am I right? However, even if they were unable to prove it with this research, a lot of the authors do believe the animals were playing, just can't fully say it scientifically. Other scientists note that the paper showed sharks' interest decreasing in the hoops over time, which might indicate they were merely exploring rather than playing in the way I just described it to y'all. That said, we all know plenty of kids and animals that only play with a toy for a short amount of time before moving on, but they are still definitely playing. So yeah, the jury is still officially out on whether sharks play, but they certainly exhibit play-like behaviors when presented with human toys like hoops, and I love that. It's always so amazing when surprising species engage in behaviors like that. I actually recently got to experience this myself. I was putting they're called dive rings. They're just little rings that you can put into an aquarium. And I was putting them into a seahorse tank while volunteering at Aquarium of Niagara. And I was just so surprised at the behavior I saw. I fully expected them to wrap around them once they got to the bottom of the tank because seahorses. But as the rings slowly sank, a few of the seahorses made a point of swimming through the hoops as they dropped. Once one did it, others literally lined up for their turn and seemed to race through the falling rings. Now, I know that I can't say they were lining up, even though they were in a line and taking... Well, they went one at a time. Again, you can't say they were taking turns, but they went one at a time. Can't say they were racing or anything, but man, that's really what it looked like. And I've never seen anything like that from seahorses before, so I thought that was very cool. Play? I don't know. But cool behavior? Absolutely. Same with the sharks. And last but not least, a raccoon recently broke into a liquor store in Hanover County, Virginia, got itself drunk, and passed out in the bathroom. True story, and a good one at that. But that's not all. Hanover County officials have launched a limited edition t-shirt campaign with an illustration of a raccoon passed out drunk emblazoned with Trashed Panda on it. Now that's some good merch. Not as good as Tree Kangaroo podcast merch, though. Just saying.
Animal, animal, animal holidays. Animal, animal, animal holidays.
All right. It is December, which doesn't have a special animal to it, which is shocking to me. December kind of sucks for animal holidays in general. Like, the animal holidays are very good, but there just aren't a lot of them. So no special month. The 5th is World Soil Day, which if Peppermint Narwhal is going to call it an animal holiday, then so will I. But, soil is important to animals, but that ain't no animal, y'all. Soil ain't coral. But anyway. I digress. The 7th begins Walrus Awareness Week, which runs to the 13th, and the 9th is National Llama Day. And those are your animal holidays for the week. All right, folks. Well, there you have it. Another episode of Rossifari Zoo News. Make sure you're back here on Tuesday for an exciting new interview episode, and then back on Friday for another Zoo News episode. Before we get going, I do want to take a moment to say thank you to my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Shank, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, Kevin Williams, and Cormac McMuffin. Meow. And also, if you are one of my paid patrons, you can actually get a discount code for the merch that I'm selling right now. So head on over to your Patreon and check that out. I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who contributed stories this week, including Anya Keene, Colleen Lenahan, Kim Cooley-Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbuck, Dr. Natalie Taco, Sam Evans, Dr. Laura Shank, Jacob Zinn, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky, The Malenskys, Kevin Williams, Holly Page, Jay Meredith, Dr. Zoe Rossi, Barbara Bennett, Ken Tryon, Ann Yoshioka, Alexa Lopez, Marianne Rossi, April Taylor, Nancy Fetters, and Alyssa Boochter. Thank you so much, all of you, for contributing to this week's episode. Always appreciated. You're the coolest. Yay, people. All right, with all of that said, it is time to say goodbye. But before we do, don't forget, friends, the words Newsy credits backwards are Steider Giswen. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo. Previous family that owned the park ran it for 85 years before selling it. 58 years. When did I become dyslexic?